Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Angie Knowles, a mixed media textile artist. In today's video, I want to do a short demonstration showing you how I created the fabric from last week, Fabric Friday. Now, I know I explained the process to you, but I thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and show you exactly how I did it. So let's start off by taking an inventory of my supplies. First, I have the fabric that I'll be dyeing, and it's a cotton muslin. And then I have my PVC pole, and it's 1 3/4 inches in diameter. I have my 3 colors of dyes, a tangerine, a neutral gray, and a black. I've decided to use 3 colors this time because I want to experiment and see how the 3 colors work well together. I wanted some darks, but I didn't want the really darks of a black, so the neutral gray won't be as dark, but I need the darks to add some contrast. I also have a few rubber bands and some pipettes to apply the dye, and I have a tray to work on to protect my table surface, and I also have an additional cover to protect my cutting mat from getting dye on. And let's not forget the gloves so that I don't walk around with my hands looking all tutti-frutti. Before I can start dyeing, I need to take and soak this fabric in a solution of soda ash. Soda ash, which is sodium carbonate, it allows the dye to become permanent on the fabric. If you dye the fabric without this, the dyes will stain the fabric, but most of it will wash out. I make up a bucket of soda ash, and I use a gallon of water to approximately 1/2 cup of soda ash, and I always keep this on hand. And if the volume starts to get low, I just add more water and more soda ash. So let me go soak this in soda ash, and I'll be right back, and I'll show you exactly how to create the fabric from last week. Okay, now before I start, I'll just give you a brief description of what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the fabric and roll it around this PVC pipe, add some rubber bands, and add my 3 colors of dye using the pipettes. So let me move all this excess stuff out of the way, and I'll show you exactly how to do it. So I'll start by laying the fabric out on the tray, and then just starting with one end, rolling it loosely around the pipe. Now it doesn't matter how straight it's rolled, it all depends up to you. If you really have to have it as straight as possible, do so. Otherwise, just roll it up, and then I'll take and add a rubber band to each end, and then start putting some rubber bands in the middle, evenly spaced or somewhat evenly spaced. To make sure that the rubber bands are on tight, I like to double the rubber bands over before I put them onto the pipe and the fabric. On last week's sample, I added a lot of rubber bands. They were probably spaced close to 1 inch apart, and I found it very difficult to do the next step, which is to scrunch the fabric tightly. So this time I will not be putting on as many rubber bands, and hopefully I won't have as much of a difficult time scrunching it all together. I tell you, these gloves really keep your hands from looking all tutti-frutti and from people looking at you weird when you go out in public. They're a real pain in the butt right here. They keep getting caught under the rubber bands. I'm sure I'll have holes in it before I finish, and I'll have tutti-frutti hands anyway. So I'll just keep adding some rubber bands along the length of the fabric. I'll space them about 2 inches apart this time, and hopefully it won't be too tight. Oops, there goes that one. So I'll just get another one and just keep adding them until you have as many rubber bands as you feel you need. Just keep in mind, if you get them spaced too close together, you may have a difficult time scrunching them. Okay, now see, this is exactly why I have a tray on the table, because I got lucky right there. I could have easily spilled all that dye, and that's usually what happens to me. So here's a mystery black stain. I have no idea where it came from, but all I can do is hope it washes out and won't mess up the look of the fabric. So I would just finish adding the rubber bands to this piece, trying not to get my gloves caught underneath the rubber bands and get holes in them. And after we do this, then it will be time to start adding the dye. Now comes the most difficult part. Depending on how closely you put those rubber bands together, it can be difficult to scrunch. So I'm going to place this pipe against my abdomen and just push, and I'll usually start at one end and push it as far as I can, and then turn it around and push from the other end. Okay, the fabric is scrunched as tightly as I want it, And I discovered something when scrunching this. If I start scrunching from the middle and work my way to one end, and then go back to the middle and work my way to the other end, it was a little easier. Okay, now let's add some dye. I usually like to start off with my lightest color. In this case, it will be the tangerine. And this color has a tendency to settle, so I'm going to give it a good stir before I start. And then just suck up some in the pipette and start applying it to the fabric. I want to make sure that there's enough dye on the fabric that the color soaks down through, but I don't want to oversaturate it so that it fills in all the way and doesn't leave me any white space. So I'll just apply it to one side and turn the pipe over and continue to apply the tangerine dye. I like to dispense the dye in these small containers because I don't want to use my big container and contaminate it with soda ash. Because once the dye has soda ash in it, it's only good for 4 hours. If it doesn't have soda ash, you can refrigerate the dye and keep it for several months, or you can leave it at room temperature and it's good for about a week. So I try to avoid contaminating my dye with soda ash. Now let's add the second color, which is going to be the neutral gray. It's a dark color, but it's not as dark as the black. I don't want to add a lot of this color because I don't want it to overwhelm my tangerine. Now, when working with gray and black and yellow, you get green tones when you add gray and black. It seems counterintuitive, but if you've done any color studies or if you've done any color mixing, you know that black and yellow or yellow and gray will turn greenish on you. So add just enough of the second color to be an accent. Sometimes it's very easy to overdo it, but one thing in your favor, it all looks darker when it's wet, and usually it washes out very nicely. Now we can add the final color, which is the black. When mixing a black dye, you want to make it twice as strong as you do your other colors, because the black is not really a pure black. All of the blacks have some undertones to them, and if you mix it the same strength, you really end up with a very weak washed out color. So I'm going to add just enough black to be an accent. I don't want it to overwhelm it. At least that's what I'm hoping I'm doing here. Since this is the first time I've used 3 colors, I guess we'll see. Alright guys, so that's it. That's how I created the piece that you saw in last week's Fabric Friday. And if you haven't watched that video, click on the link that's popping up to the right of the screen, and I will also have the description down below. I hope you've enjoyed this little short tutorial. If you have, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed, and ring that bell so that you don't miss any new videos that I upload. I hope to see you back here again sometime soon, but until then, have a beautiful day.